I'm a 29-year-old man who recently became a father, or at least I thought I did, with my now ex-girlfriend, a 27-year-old woman. The pregnancy wasn't planned, and when she first told me she was expecting, I felt an overwhelming mix of fear and excitement. Despite my initial shock, I decided to embrace the idea of becoming a father. I started to imagine all the special moments we would share. Seeing my child take their first steps, reading bedtime stories, and teaching them how to ride a bike. I was eager to build a future for my family, so I took on extra shifts at work to save up for a bigger place. I wanted to provide the best life possible for my child and my girlfriend. Our relationship had always been a bit rocky. We had only been together for about a year when she found out she was pregnant. There were ups and downs, but I remained committed to her and the idea of us being a family. I refused to be the kind of father who walked away from his responsibilities. I was determined to be there for my child, no matter what. When my son was born 5 months ago, I was ecstatic. All the challenges, the sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, felt worth it. I loved that little boy more than I could ever put into words. A few weeks ago, though, everything started to fall apart. I began to notice little things that didn't sit right with me. I can't point to one specific moment, but maybe it was the way my ex avoided certain conversations about the timeline of her pregnancy, or maybe it was just a gut feeling that something was off. I couldn't shake the sense of unease, and eventually, I decided I needed to know the truth. Without telling her, I went ahead and got a paternity test. Part of me hoped that I was just being paranoid, that the test would prove my doubts unfounded. When the results came back, my world shattered. The baby I had been holding, feeding, and bonding with wasn't biologically mine. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I confronted my ex, and after a lot of crying and shouting, she finally admitted the truth. She had been unfaithful around the time she got pregnant. There were multiple men, and she had no idea who the real father was. She had just hoped that it was me. That night, I couldn't stay. I packed my things and left. I couldn't even look at her. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated. The pain of realizing that the child I loved so deeply wasn't mine was indescribable. It felt like I had lost a part of myself. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer to figure out how to remove my name from the birth certificate. I know that might sound harsh, but I didn't want to be legally tied to a child who wasn't biologically mine. Since then, my ex has been constantly calling and messaging me, accusing me of abandoning both her and the baby. She says I'm cruel and punishing an innocent child. I can't deny that part of me feels guilty. I still care about that baby deeply. He didn't ask for any of this, and none of it is his fault. But at the same time, I can't ignore the reality of what happened. I can't pretend to be his father when I know I'm not. I can't just overlook the betrayal and lie to myself about the situation. Moving forward has been incredibly hard. I keep thinking about that little boy and wondering if I made the right decision. There's a constant battle inside me between the love I felt for him and the pain of the betrayal. I've been talking to my lawyer about my rights and responsibilities, trying to understand what options I have and what path I should take. I'm hoping to find some clarity in all of this, but right now, everything feels confusing and painful. I'm sharing my story because I'm struggling to process everything and would love to hear from others who might have gone through something similar. How did you cope with the emotions? Did you ever find peace with your decision? Any advice or shared experiences would mean a lot to me right now as I try to navigate this difficult time. Throughout my relationship with my ex-wife, I often found myself grappling with her temper. She had always had a short fuse, which never sat well with me. Early in our marriage, she directed her anger at others, and while it was unpleasant, it usually seemed justified. However, as the years went by, especially in the final stretch of our relationship, her demeanor changed. She became more critical and negative, and her sharp words were increasingly aimed at me. In hindsight, the things she lashed out about were often minor, but they took a toll on me. I genuinely don't think I changed much throughout our relationship. If anything, I had grown in positive ways. I was actively working on bettering myself, becoming more emotionally aware and embracing a more sensitive side. Yet, her constant negativity wore me down, eating away at my self-esteem at a time when I was trying to grow and improve. Things took a more complicated turn when she made friends with an older man through one of her hobbies. Let's call him DB. He had a reputation for being irritable and abrasive, not someone I naturally gravitated toward. My ex was adamant that men and women could have purely platonic friendships, and she repeatedly emphasized this whenever I expressed any discomfort. She insisted their relationship was completely innocent, even when my instincts told me otherwise. When DB needed a temporary place to stay, she convinced me to let him live in our basement for a few months. Despite my reservations, I agreed, believing I owed it to her to be accommodating since he was her friend. I made a genuine effort to be a good host, even though I never liked the guy. After he moved out, she went on a trip with him and some others. During that trip, DB confessed that he had feelings for her. When she returned, she told me about the confession and admitted she felt confused. She claimed the spark in our marriage had faded and said she needed time to sort out her feelings. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Desperate to save our marriage, I went into overdrive trying to win her back. I did everything I could think of, trying to be more attentive, supportive, and accommodating. I was bending over backwards, hoping to remind her of the connection we once had. Eventually, she decided to stay with me, telling me I made her feel special. Yet, she still refused to cut off contact with DB. She told both of us that we would have to accept her decision and that this friendship wasn't going anywhere. Things seemed to stabilize briefly. We even went on a vacation together and renewed our mortgage. But gradually, the familiar pattern of anger and negativity returned. I began to sense that something was seriously wrong. Then, she announced she wanted to take another trip with DB. She insisted that if I truly trusted her, I had to let her go. That entire week, I had an unshakable feeling of dread. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. When she returned, she admitted that she had kissed him. She downplayed it, insisting that it was just a kiss and that it didn't count as cheating because it wasn't more physical than that. She seemed to dismiss the emotional betrayal completely, as though my feelings didn't matter. I begged her to go to couples therapy, and she reluctantly agreed. However, after only 2 sessions, she threw in the towel, showing no real interest in repairing our relationship. The separation followed, and while the marriage was technically over, it took me a good 6 months to fully accept it. Processing my anger and grief was a slow and painful journey. During the divorce proceedings, she insisted that her decision to leave had nothing to do with DB. She maintained that our marriage simply wasn't working and claimed that she had done me a favor by ending it. Yet, the irony wasn't lost on me. She moved in with DB shortly after we separated. From the little I know, he doesn't treat her well. But she continues to justify her actions, even going as far as suggesting I should be grateful for her bravery in ending things. Her behavior has been erratic since then. Sometimes she speaks fondly of our relationship, nostalgic about the good times. Other times, she's consumed by anger, lashing out with such intensity that I feel myself slipping back into self-doubt and depression whenever I have to interact with her. She has no empathy for the pain she caused, acting as if I should have simply moved on by now. Now that our divorce is final, and we're in the process of splitting assets, she expects me to remain a part of her life. She's furious that I refuse to stay friends, as if she has the right to demand anything from me after everything that happened. She even wants me to help take care of the dog she insisted on keeping, not out of any real consideration for me, but purely for her convenience. Currently, I'm dating a wonderful woman who treats me with genuine respect and kindness, something I never experienced in my marriage. My ex remains the only real source of tension in this new relationship. She's been gaslighting me, claiming I'm easily manipulated by people who suggest I should cut off contact with her. But I see through it now. Her insistence on maintaining a connection isn't about friendship. It's about control. She wants to keep a foothold in my life, to ensure I'm always available to her in some way. I've worked hard to rebuild myself, and I refuse to let her drag me back into that toxic cycle. Cutting off contact isn't about being bitter or unreasonable. It's about protecting my peace and well-being. I've finally started to heal, and I won't let her guilt trips or manipulation undo that progress. No one deserves to stay tethered to someone who disrespected and betrayed them. I'm focusing on the positive things in my life now, and I'm determined not to let her pull me back into her chaos.